Welcome back to Coffee and Tea with CarrieVee. I'm CarrieVee, your biggest fan, and I believe in you. I believe in you before you even believe in yourself. And even then, I'm going to keep believing in you. Coffee and Tea with CarrieVee is all things leadership, communication, confidence, clarity. It is all things life. In this podcast, we cover life issues, we cover women's issues, we cover leadership, we cover communication, we cover radical empowerment. We talk about life and the things that come across our plates. And we have been spending some time on the topics of leadership and communication, and we're going to dive even more into that today. Over the next few weeks, we're going to keep talking about leadership and communication and what it means to our lives. I'm just trying to turn my ringer off there. Sorry, I thought it was off. We're going to talk about persuasion and what that really means, and does it mean forcing people, and does it mean being salesy? How do we be persuasive without being pushy? So if we talk about persuasion without adding pressure into it, does that make a difference in people? Does it make a difference in how you lead and how you communicate? We can be persuasive with people. We're always trying to persuade somebody, right? Even a toddler is trying to persuade you. You take them through the checkout line, they see candy, they are going to try to persuade you to buy them something. We are always persuading. Are we going to go to the Chinese restaurant or to the Mexican restaurant or to the Italian restaurant or to the grill, to the Hollywood grill? Where are we going to go? We're always trying to persuade. But when we persuade with pressure, we lose people in every walk of life. If we try to pressure our children, pressure our spouse, pressure our friends, we will lose them. No one wants to feel cornered. You know, when you corner a cat, their claws come out and then they will lunge. People do the same thing. They may not physically lunge at you, but they will back off. They will walk away. That is the way it works. No one wants to feel pressured. So we want to learn how to be persuasive by being influential, not pressuring people. When people feel pushed, their brain activates this defense mode and they resist. True influence happens when the other person feels respected and in control, whether it is your child or your spouse or your friends, a coworker. People feel respected and in control. That is true influence. That's when influence happens. Pressure triggers resistance. Curiosity triggers openness. When you are curious about someone, when you're asking questions, which is another point we'll get to in this podcast, that's when people feel heard and respected and loved and treasured. We don't have to be pushy. We've heard of salespeople being pushy. And if I could see you, I'd ask you to raise your hands. Who has ever felt pressured by someone trying to sell them something? Does it work? If you feel pressured into it, are you happy if you actually bought the thing that they were selling, or do you feel resentment if you purchased it? And how many times do you take it back because you just felt pressured into it? And more likely, how many times did you just get up and leave and say, if you're going to push me, I'm out? No one wants to feel that cornered. Leadership, or a lack of leadership that just says do this, is not good leadership. Help me understand, or help me see what you're seeing, hear what you're hearing. That's true leadership. That is persuasion. That is true influence. That is not being pushy. Influence works best when people feel safe and not sold. So if we look at influence, persuasion without pressure, which is the name of this podcast, persuasion without pressure, your first point is that influence works best. Influence works best when people feel safe and not sold. If someone feels cornered, you've already lost your influence. If someone starts to shut down, you have already lost your influence. If someone starts backing away from you, you have already lost influence. And let me remind you that regaining influence after you've lost it is much harder than earning that influential, caring persona in the first place. Regaining it is very, very difficult. You will have to work 10 times harder to regain after you've lost it, rather than to build it from the beginning. And true leaders build influence from the beginning. They help people feel safe and not sold, not resentful, not cornered, but respected, and that they have control. Good leaders will work with their team, not tell them what to do. So that's number one. Influence works best when people feel safe and not sold. Number two, persuasion is about framing, not forcing. Persuasion is about framing, not forcing. How you present an idea matters more than the idea. How you present an idea matters far more than the idea itself, because humans respond to meaning and context and not logic alone. Meaning and context, not just the logic behind it. Framing the choices around values, benefits, and identity is powerful. Work with someone. If you are a leader in the business world and you're setting KPIs or key performance indicators, if you're setting them, if you work with your team rather than telling them what their KPIs are, but working with them on their KPIs, they will reach them almost 100% of the time, because you didn't push them, you influence them. You help them feel seen and heard, and you set them with them, giving them input into that. That works in a family. Instead of just saying, these are your chores and go for it, work with them. Work with them. When I was a kid, my mom and dad were not perfect. I know when I talk about them, I make it sound like they were, and they were amazing parents. I hit the jackpot of parents. I don't take that lightly. They weren't perfect, but they were pretty daggone close. And when we set our chores, we would all sit down together. I didn't mind scrubbing floors. My brothers hated it. I didn't mind doing laundry. My brothers hated it. But my brothers loved doing the outside work, and I hated that. So when we set chores, we all sat down together and we all did our chores. And we had to do our chores before we went out and played, rode bikes or went to our friends' houses. But we had input on the chores that we were going to do. And it is much easier to finish a set of chores that you don't really hate doing, rather than the ones that, if they had given me all the yard work, it would have taken me all weekend to get it done. I still don't like doing yard work. I will work inside the house all day long. But the first time a spider crawled up my sleeve, I was done working outside. It's just not my thing. My mom and dad worked on getting to know us when they put together our chore list. And so they didn't have to force us. They framed it. Persuasion is about framing, not forcing. So, for example, instead of saying you should exercise, you could say this supports the energy that you say you want. So if someone says to you, even an employee, a spouse, a child, a friend, says, I just wish I had more energy, this supports the energy you say you want, is much more effective than, oh, well, you should just go out and exercise. No one wants to feel forced. We need to change this versus this solves the problem that you flagged. This solves the problem that you flagged is much more influential than, well, we need to change this. You should exercise. We should change this. You should do this. Those are forcing, and people don't respond well to being forced. They feel like they're in a corner. 1 and 2 go hand in hand. Influence works best when people feel safe and not sold. And number 2, persuasion is about framing and not forcing. Not forcing. People don't want to be convinced. They want to feel aligned. They don't want to feel that you're trying to convince them. Saying the same thing 20 times because you're going to keep saying it till somebody agrees with you. If they finally agree with you, they're not doing it because you persuaded them. They're doing it because you forced them, because you wore them down like dripping water on their forehead. That's not leadership. That is not influence. That is forcing. The third point is that the most influential people, here we're going to go again, asking better questions. We've talked about this in the last 5 episodes, I think. The most influential people ask better questions. Questions activate ownership and internal motivation. So if I go back to setting key performance indicators, KPIs, with employees that I worked with, that I was the general manager for, when we worked on them together and they had ownership in what their KPIs would be, they were far more likely to meet those KPIs than if I just gave them a list and said, here's your goals. This is what you're going to work for. And that works in every part of life. I just had a company. A lot of you know that I do quite a bit of user generated content. And I just had a company approach me that we have been working together on a retainer basis. So what that means is they give me a certain amount of money at the beginning of every month. And then I am expected to fulfill a certain number of videos every month. And we just sat down moving into 2026 together, working out the KPIs, or the key performance indicators, that they need, and then I had input on how I think that needs to look. And then we meshed it together and we put together a plan, and it made me feel powerful and they feel powerful because we worked together. They asked questions. How many times would you like to post on TikTok? How many kind of more acting video styles would you like to do? And my response was, this is what I would like, but what do you need as a company to build this brand? And we worked together so that what they expect out of me is very clear, but I also had input into it. They asked me questions. Where are you comfortable with this? What does your schedule look like that you can realistically get all of this done? It was a very powerful conversation, and I left it feeling extremely in control of that partnership, because they allowed me to have input into those KPIs as well. And I felt that they truly respected me because they asked. And they didn't just ask, but they took it all into consideration when we put together our goals for 2026 as we work together. When people talk themselves into an idea, the idea sticks. You don't have to force them. You ask questions and help them set up those ideas, and those ideas stick because they had a part in it. Influence is about guiding insight, not delivering the conclusions. Influence is about guiding insight. That's true influence. When you're asking questions and you're guiding people. So you could ask some questions like, oh, what does success look like to you here? What makes this feel risky right now? Or what would make it easier for you to say yes to this? What would make it easier? That's kind of what my mom and dad with the chores. What would make it easier for you to say, you know what, this isn't going to be so bad. I'm going to get up on Saturday morning and get my chores done. When we approached it that way, it just wasn't that hard. We knew that they weren't forcing us, and they knew that they were going to get the chores done. We all worked together. It wasn't just the three kids. My mom and dad did too. We all wanted to be able to go out and go to the movies on a Saturday night, or play board games, or put puzzles together. We all wanted to be able to relax from Saturday noon until Sunday night together as a family. And so we worked together. Everybody had their input, and it was very effective. I had the joy and the pleasure of seeing leadership and communication in action throughout my childhood. And it's why one of the reasons that I'm so passionate about it now, because as I grew up, I realized that most people didn't have that. And I am very, very thankful that I did. My dad was a huge fan of the Dale Carnegie School. He graduated from Dale Carnegie. I still have his graduation pencil. If you're on YouTube, you can see it. And I cherish this because my dad took leadership seriously. He started reading John Maxwell books. He started taking courses on leadership and on communication. And my mom worked for DuPont, and they sent her to all kinds of classes on leadership and communication. I got to see that firsthand, and I want to bring that out now because I am seeing such a downfall of true leadership, of true communication, of true connection. I don't see it happening. I feel like we're in an epidemic of people not communicating, of leaders thinking that leadership means forcing people, and it doesn't mean forcing people. Influence is about asking questions. It's about getting people involved. It's about framing things, not forcing them. It is about helping people feel safe and not sold. That's true leadership. That is true leadership. It is not about forcing. Influence is what grows when you respect people. The science of influence isn't about pressure. It is never, ever about manipulation. It's about understanding how humans actually make decisions. And that's emotionally, socially, and safely. When you remove pressure, influence becomes natural. I hope that this has all been coming around as we talk more and more about communication and leadership, that you are getting fired up, moving into a new year. We're so close to 2026 to spend an entire year building your influence, building your communication skills, building your connection skills, building your leadership skills, and knowing that you can influence people to make better decisions. You can influence people to make wiser choices, because you have taken the time to learn yourself how to be a great leader and how to connect with people and how to communicate. So your journal prompt today is, where in my life could I influence more effectively by building trust and understanding first, rather than trying to convince, explain, or push? Where in my life could I influence more effectively by building trust and understanding first, rather than trying to explain, convince, or push? Basically coercion. So where in my life could I influence more effectively by building trust and understanding rather than coercing people, building true influence? I love you. I am your biggest fan. And until next time, have an amazing, amazing New Year's Eve. Be safe, stay warm, and I will see you in 2026.